What's up guys, it's TheGearChange here back with another video, and today I'm going to be going over budget P-plate cars for car enthusiasts. Just to preface, these cars are P-plate legal in Queensland only, just for this one. They may be P-plate legal in other states, but I had a few people last time let me know that some cars were legal in Queensland but not in Victoria, or Queensland and not in Adelaide, so on and so forth. So just to sort of narrow it down for this video, I've made it for Queensland P-platers mainly, but it applies to all states as long as you have a look. To my knowledge, honestly, most of the cars in this list should be P-plate legal in all states. They're not overly powerful P-plate cars. As the budget I've set for this is lower than the previous video, I think the budget is around 12,500. So that's sort of the maximum, and then obviously anything below that. So the kilometers and condition of the car can vary, but I've selected a variety of different cars to kind of show you guys. These are all cars that today I have looked at, and they are on car sales and you can buy them, so it sort of makes it more accurate, whereas last time I was just sort of picking and choosing different makes and models that were in the sort of 15 to 20 sort of $1,000 range. So yeah, I've got a good variety of cars. Hopefully you guys enjoy. If you're interested, be sure to check out the merch. I do have links below to hoodies, keychains, t-shirts, all that jazz. So yeah, we'll get started into the list, and I'll sort of show you guys each car to like my right, tell you the pros and cons about it and stuff like that, and yeah, we'll see how we go. I also thought with each car that I'm showcasing and showing to my side, I might put some videos up of what they sound like in a sort of modified form, so like an XR4, the good exhaust setup and whatnot, you know, the Hyundai, the R32 and things like that, just so you guys can also hear what the cars sound like with, you know, a really proper setup if you're planning on modifying the car. Again, I wanted to also point out that modifying your car is at your own risk. You'd obviously have to let your insurance know about it and things like that, but if that's something you plan on doing, yeah, I'll have videos sort of in between each segment of each car to sort of show you guys the potential of each of the cars on this list. Alright, so first up on the list, and again, this is in no particular order, it's just the sort of variety of cars I've chosen and found that are in that price range, is the Ford Fiesta XR4. If you're from Europe, it's just basically the Ford Fiesta ST Mark 6, so I think they call it the ST150. Really good car. I've been wanting to get one to sort of pair with this, so I could have a blue little XR4 next to an XR5. I don't know, I just thought that would be quite cool. As for pros and cons, I'm using some websites to sort of help me obviously gather information to make it sort of reputable and fair. Some likes that people have had, like owners have said that they're great cars, always fun, good value for money in terms of the segment that they're in, practical if you can make 3 doors work for you, great performance and handling for the price. And then the dislikes are no cruise control, so similar to this car here, noisy tires apparently, harsh ride over choppy surfaces, and may have been thrashed all its life, which is, you know, potential, especially for a car that's 17 years old now, I believe. I believe they came out in 2007, so, you know, they're getting up there. Yeah, other than that, they seem like a pretty decent car. Other people have put on here that, you know, there's some other issues, saying that, you know, there's a cold start issue when the car like revs low and sometimes stalls, wheel caps falling off, and some gearbox issues. Now, gearbox issues is the one thing that sort of put me off from buying them. I believe they're a 5-speed manual. I'd be keen to get one for myself, but at the same time, I'd probably want one that's sort of obviously been serviced, pretty good sort of maintenance history and things like that. But, you know, there's no such thing as a perfect car. But you guys will see to my right, I'll have like a sort of screenshot of one that I've found. I believe it's at about $7,000. The Ks are a bit high, but again, for a car of its age, it's probably not too bad. You can modify them a fair bit, so I reckon for each car I'll probably show like a version that's sort of hotted up or done up a little bit. They have a lot of potential. They're a pretty cool car. Here in Australia, you don't really see them done up much. People mainly just put like an exhaust and a few other bits and pieces on them and leave it at that. But yeah, it'd be cool to see someone take it to like the next level, maybe do like a turbo build or something. But yeah, that's number one. Veloster SR. Again, a really cool sort of hot hatch that's on the list. Quick car for the money that you pay. On car sales, there's a few different ones, obviously ranging in price depending on how many kilometers they've done, if they were modified or non-modified. It was quite hard to sort of find one under the $12,500 sort of range. Obviously, if they've got higher Ks, they may have more problems, but again, it can depend on what car you get, how it's been treated and things like that. They sound pretty cool. I've heard a few of them in person, you know, with a good intake and exhaust setup. They're a really, really fun car. They handle well and whatnot, so they're good. But yeah, so people have said value for money in terms of pros, smooth engine and comfortable ride, and some of the cons that come with it is a lackluster steering and hard plastics in the cabin. And again, similar to the XR4, they also have some transmission problems. So supposedly these have transmission slippage, so really high like RPMs when you're sort of building up speed, yet really poor sort of acceleration. So yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm not super familiar with Hyundais and tuning and stuff like that on them, or how they are for reliability. Another thing an owner said is knocking noises and loss of power going into limp mode, which can cause excessive oil consumption. So yeah, there's, like any car, it's going to have its issues, but in terms of pros, they seem like a very sort of well-built platform for a P-plater who's starting out if they want to get a car that's quick, fairly fun, easy to modify. From what I've seen as well, parts aren't too hard to get for them, like spares, things like that. So obviously you can get diverter valves to make sort of fun noises and things like that. So there's a lot of support for them. So yeah, that'll be number 2. So next up on the list is the Mitsubishi FTO. Now, there isn't too many of these cars around, obviously due to their age, and yeah, they're just an uncommon and cool car. When I was originally looking at P-plate cars, I was keen on possibly getting one, but I couldn't find a good enough one with sort of the Ks I wanted and for the price I wanted. I did a little bit of looking around, and as you guys will see, I'll have a sort of screenshot here like with all the cars. I did find one that is under the sort of price range set for this video, and I've got a list of sort of pros and cons here from owners again. So some of the pros about these cars, it says an intuitive and comfortable drive, exceptional handling on roads, bulletproof build if properly maintained. It's a very durable car, surprisingly spacious boot for its category. And in addition, it can easily seat 4 people, which is incredible for a coupe. So yeah, I guess if you've got mates, you can chuck them in the back as well, which is handy, especially for a coupe, or a coupe, I should say. And then again, some of the cons. It says the fuel economy is quite poor, which I guess is to be expected. It is quite expensive to maintain, as replacement parts are difficult to find. So that's an obvious one, just due to their age. You'd probably have to get a lot of the parts shipped out of Japan, I'd assume so. How much that would cost would also depend on whereabouts in Australia you live, or potentially if you're going to buy one when you're somewhere else overseas. The acceleration is linear, which I'm assuming means sort of slow, potentially, or poor. And then it says it has a high tax and insurance cost due to imports and limited availability. So again, there's not too many of them around, so I guess it would be hard to get parts and sort of look after the car. But if you can find a well-maintained one that's sort of been looked after and potentially even has some spare parts with it and things like that, I'd say it's a worthwhile buy, especially as a P-plate. It would definitely be a cool car to sort of have for a few years. Yeah, I've had this XR5 for nearly 3 years now, which is a suitable amount of time. I feel like I'm off my P-plates now, as you guys can probably see. But yeah, I feel like that's a good amount of time to sort of have a car, get to know the car, potentially modify the car, sort of learn things about it. If you're just sort of getting started in cars, it's a good sort of starting point to get a car that you can sort of work on and do things to if it's not too tricky. So yeah, that's that one there. is the Volkswagen Golf R32. Now, these are a pretty sweet car. They've got the VR6 engine, which I believe is a 3.2 litre. I'll have a picture of the one I found here on my right or left. I can't remember which way the screen sort of flips. But yeah, you can get them in manual or automatic. They are all-wheel drive. Yeah, pretty quick car as well for their time. I believe they came out in around 2008. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Yeah, really cool car. I guess sort of you don't see them around too much. I occasionally see them on the road, but not often. Again, a lot of them are in blue, which is a pretty cool color. I wouldn't mind having one of them if I decided to get a second car, if I could afford it, of course. But yeah, once again, I'll sort of let you guys know the pros and cons of them. So someone said here the pros are the discreet performance, the grippy four-wheel drive handling, which is an obvious one because, you know, in the wet nothing's really sort of going to compete in sort of hot hatch range. The 6-cylinder soundtrack, which is pretty sweet. I will have a clip at the end to sort of show you guys what it sounds like. And then here we have the cons that someone's listed. So offers little more than the outstanding Golf GTI. So I'm assuming if it's referring to that, because this is when this article came out, I'd be assuming that that means the Mark 6 at the time. Thirsty engine. So obviously it would cost a lot on fuel, which I can imagine, because it wouldn't be the sort of car you'd want to sort of pot around in. Similar to this, really. I mean, it's hard for me to sort of drive it calmly. You can, but it's just nowhere near as fun. And then costly to run. So obviously they might cost a lot for sort of parts and things like that. I don't know what they're like for long-term reliability and things like that. Yeah, they've said fuel consumption is quite high. But yeah, the 0 to 60 sort of time in terms of mile per hour is 6.5 seconds. So that's pretty good for the time in which it came out. So yeah, you can get the DSG or 6-speed manual. So yeah, for the price they are, you can get them for, I believe, $15,000 and under, but the one I have shown here is around 12.5. So yeah, they're a pretty good contender for, I'd say, one of the sort of best P-plate cars you can get if you're on a budget. Again, if it's had all of the maintenance done to it, it's been serviced, it'd be better to sort of probably get a stock one that you can sort of modify yourself if that's what you're wanting to do. But again, each to their own. So yeah, that's that one right there for the R32. So next up is the Mitsubishi Lancer Ralliart, which I believe is the CJ shape. You can get these in a hatch or a sedan. From what I've seen, based off of price, kilometers and things like that, the hatchbacks seem to be a bit cheaper than the sedans. I don't know what reason that would be for. Maybe less space. People just maybe aren't as interested in them. But yeah, they seem like a pretty good car. Again, you can get them in manual. They've got a potent turbocharged engine from what this article's saying here. Sophisticated all-wheel drive system and gearbox. So again, another all-wheel drive car. So there's a decent amount of cars if you sort of search around and you can sort of spare a bit of extra money on parts, mods and things like that. Easier ride than an Evo. Generously appointed and plenty of space with excellent load access. So, you know, again, if you've got mates and things like that, you can sort of shove them in the back and they won't be too squished. It'll probably be a bit hard if they're quite tall, but, you know, if you're just doing to and from school, if you're on P-plates, it shouldn't be too bad. And then here are the dislikes. So, too many key components carried over from lesser Lancer's dull performance. So that's obviously like the base model. So, yeah, dual clutch auto can be hesitant. So that's obviously an issue with driving, and from what people are saying here, like, it can be a bit sluggish. High pricing compared with key rivals, and interior lacks inspiration. So people seem to think it seems a bit dull, scratchy plastics, things like that. So, but again, you're basing it off of the cost and how much it sort of, you know, costs amongst other hot hatches. So it's a bit hard to sort of compare. I guess if you compare it to the R32, which I was talking about before, the Golf would probably have a better interior, but you don't know which one would sort of suit you better. You might prefer the Mitsubishi over the Golf, because you might find one that's cheaper and vice versa. So I'll have a video to show you guys what the car looks and sounds like, and I'll have a picture of the one I found on car sales today, just so you guys can see what they look like, and that they are available. So just got to sort of hunt around. But yeah, that's the Ralliart. Next on the list is a bit of an underrated car. I rarely ever actually see them on the road, but it is a Peugeot 208 GTI. Yeah, I don't know, there's a fair few of them on car sales, which surprised me. This one, I think, this car here is probably one of the lower kilometer cars that I've featured in today's video. Yeah, good value for money car from the sounds of it. I've written down here somewhere the specs. They've got 147 kilowatts, and they are a 6-speed manual, so you know that's a decent amount of power for such a small car. Yeah, people have said they're great fun to drive, they're well equipped, and also practical if it's just you and a friend or you and your partner. So you know, on P plates, I don't think I've ever really seen anyone modify them or do anything to them. Over in Europe, it'd be a completely different story. People would probably do heaps and heaps of stuff to them, but yeah, here locally I haven't seen much interest in them. I don't know if that's due to lack of parts potentially, issues sort of modifying and getting things for them to sort of do them up. I mean, even with this car, it's hard to get some parts because you're having to get them out of Europe, but I'd say for the most part it wouldn't be too bad. But some of the cons that people have listed is odd dial layout. They are obviously a 3-door only, so it's not like the other cars where if you've got mates you can't just chuck them in the back, and at the time they were quite pricey. And then one major issue that people have said with it is that the infotainment system would randomly on occasions make a loud popping noise and just turn off and on for no reason. So if that was obviously, I don't know if that was fixed in potentially like some sort of update at the Peugeot dealer. I don't know if you have to take that in and sort of bring that up with them. There's always something with some cars that's just happens. Yeah, apparently this guy also said when he put the car in reverse gear he would occasionally get a droning noise from the clutch or gearbox. So yeah, I can kind of see why people would probably maybe stay away from them. I'd say if it's got lower kilometers, hopefully it wouldn't be too bad if you did a few bits and pieces to it, hung on to it for a few years, and then obviously sold it and got something else that was more practical or suited your needs. But yeah, I mean, people have said they're pretty reliable as long as you service it regularly. So just like any sort of European car like this, you know, you just maintain it as best as you can. Sometimes things that are just out of your control can go wrong, but that goes for any car. But I think for the price that they are at the moment, they're probably not a bad buy for someone who's looking at, you know, getting into cars or sort of modifying or doing a few bits and pieces. So yeah, there's that one there. Alright, so the final car on the list for today is the Mazda MX-5 NB Series 1. Yeah, a lot of people love the MX-5, of course. They're synonymous with the pop-up headlights and things like that. I wanted to put that one on here, but I couldn't find too many that were sort of, yeah, under 12 and a half that were in sort of good condition. They're holding their money quite well, especially for a car that's that old. This series seems to be quite popular on car sales. There seems to be a fair few of them at varying price ranges, again, depending on kilometers, if they're modified and things like that. But I've got this one here to sort of show you guys. So yeah, apparently people said some pros are obviously that it's a classic modern roadster and yeah, affordable, fun to drive on like mountain drives and sort of twisties, which sounds similar to obviously like an XR5 or an XR4. And then yeah, a few issues just due to their age, of course. They can have some rain rail issues with water leaking into the trunk, coil packs failing, and wiring, just again things that will probably just go wrong due to age and things like that. But yeah, overall they seem like a pretty cool car. I know a few friends that I think have a NB Series 2 it might be, because it's got like newer headlights and things like that. But yeah, they are pretty cool cars. So, you know, you can get them in a convertible or a hardtop from what I'm seeing here. So yeah, I mean, if you're after a budget car that's just fun to sort of drive around and maybe even do some like runs of a night time up some mountains and things like that, it would definitely be worthwhile. There's probably a lot you can do to them too for like mods and things like that. I know people do crazy things like engine swaps and whatnot, but obviously you're not going to be doing that on your P plates. But yeah, they seem like a really cool car. So that'll do it for today's video. Yeah, I had quite a few of you guys message me and comment on that video saying you wanted a part 2 on a budget. So I tried to have a look for cars around 10,000 and under, but I really did struggle. There was some occasional ones on Facebook Marketplace and things like that, but they were, you know, at a price point where you'd be buying it and spending money on the car just to sort of get it up and running. So yeah, I thought 12.5 was sort of a fair price point to sort of start with, and sort of, you know, the cars that are on there, you can obviously get ones that are more expensive or potentially less expensive. Depends on price, kilometers, all things like that, location, and it's all timing. You know, you can get a car that's like that R32 that I had there, that's what price it was, and then one that's cheaper or more expensive. So it's a bit hard to sort of pick and choose, but I hope you guys enjoyed. I did try and make it sort of as concise as possible. I didn't want to sort of elaborate with each individual car and sort of do a massive sort of segment on each one, because with how I talk I'd be here for ages. So I sort of wanted to make it sort of short and concise and just have each sort of car and talk about what's good about it, what's bad about it, and some potential issues that might happen with the car, just based off the fact that most of them are sort of older. They're not really new cars, because it's pretty hard to get a car that's $12,500 that's new, that's sort of fun or performance based. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any other video suggestions or things you want to see on the channel, please do let me know. By this point you would have seen that I installed the new steering wheel, which is pretty awesome, and I'm looking at getting a few other bits and pieces, and potentially looking at also getting some injectors to put this XR5 on a Dream Science Stage 3 tune. So yeah, doing my best to sort of keep everything sort of on a weekly schedule of videos, but yeah, I'm gonna also try and save up for a PC so I can potentially do streaming and things like that. Maybe even save up so I can maybe get like a second car, because it would be pretty cool to have like a little project car, but we'll see how we go. Just got to sort of take things one day at a time. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.